Is finding your dream career feeling impossible right now? You're not alone. Welcome to Career Blueprint, the podcast that helps you figure out your next career move. We explore the trends in tech shaking up the job market, giving you the unfiltered advice you need, whether you're starting out, changing direction, or guiding someone else. Let's figure out what's next for you together. This is Career Blueprint. When was the last time you had to do work on a creative visual project? Maybe you helped your child design a poster for school, or you had to put together a PowerPoint for work with some pictures. Or you might have posted something on social media about your last vacation. When you did the project, did you ever struggle to find just the right image or have trouble cropping a photo so it's the right size for Instagram or TikTok? Or spend forever tweaking the fonts and colors so that everything looked just right? What if I told you that now you can create exactly what is in your head quickly and easily just by describing it? You don't need to know any complex software or wrestle with tricky design tools. Instead, you can generate 10 different versions of what you're looking for, or more, in just seconds, all with a few simple taps on a computer keyboard. Welcome to Generative AI, the technology that's transforming the way we create and envision visual ideas. I'm Carey O'Connor, and this is Career Blueprint, where we make sense of work's shifting landscape and help you understand how those changes may impact you and your career. Before we start, I want to share with you that I've been looking forward to this episode since I first decided to launch this podcast. When I started reading and studying about AI, what first caught my attention is the claim that AI can do creative work. I wanted to understand, what does that mean? For me and many others, this is a really important distinction between humans and computers. The ability to be creative, to come up with something new, is part of the essence of being human. So hearing that computers were creating original art, books, and music, it made me think, what does it mean to be human in the age of AI? If computers are able to mimic more and more of what we can do, if computers can talk and think and even tell jokes, what really, truly differentiates us from machines? So I decided to start exploring this topic and these questions by examining the profession of graphic design. Now, I chose to start with graphic design over the many other creative jobs out there because graphic design is such an interesting mix of creative and technology. I thought, if AI really can create art and music, then graphic design is one of the professions that's going to feel it first. Now, if you aren't familiar with the profession of graphic design, let me introduce you. Graphic designers create visual content that communicates ideas, messages, or information in a clear and engaging way. Their work is part creative, part strategy, and part visual storytelling. Their output, what they create, spans a wide variety of things, including logos, posters, digital ads, book covers, websites, product packaging, video graphics, and countless other forms of visual design. Graphic design is a profession that has always been shaped by technology. If you've been listening to me, you know I love history, as I think it gives us great clues as to how the future will unfold. But for this episode in particular, I think it's really important for us to understand a bit of the history of the profession so we can understand and even predict how AI is and is not changing things. Graphic designers have always relied on the latest tools and innovations to bring their ideas to life, and AI is just the newest chapter in a long story of technological changes. So, a little history. Graphic design is a very old, respected profession. Although the term graphic designer wasn't coined until 1922, the profession's actually been around since around the 1400s, when Johann Gutenberg invented the printing press. Before Gutenberg, books and documents were super rare because they were all created by hand, so only the rich could afford them. Gutenberg's movable type system changed everything. Suddenly, written information and visual content could be reproduced quickly, making printed materials like pamphlets, broadsheets, and later books widely available to the general public. This technological leap did more than just spread information. It put a spotlight on how words and images were arranged. And this was the foundation of graphic design today. Now, graphic design really started to become a profession in the late 1700s and early 1800s, when the Industrial Revolutions brought new inventions like machine-made paper and faster printing presses and lithography. All of these inventions enabled printed materials to be produced on an unprecedented scale. And these technological advances transformed not only books and newspapers, but they opened the door for businesses to reach potential customers with announcements and promotional messaging, otherwise known as advertising. Businesses suddenly wanted eye-catching posters, billboards, and packaging to stand out in crowded markets. This prompted a need for professionals who knew how to use the technologies of the day to connect their businesses with their audiences through carefully arranged layouts, striking illustrations, and memorable types. These technological changes created new jobs like layout artists, engravers, illustrators, and typographers. As we entered the 1900s, printing technology kept advancing. Photography was becoming common, and it was changing what designers could do with images. Designers were also experimenting with new typefaces that helped brands stand out in crowded cities. Technology continued to leap forward in the 50s, 60s, and 70s with the widespread adoption of television, the introduction of offset lithography, photo typesetting, and improvements in color separation. All of these huge technological changes greatly broadened the abilities of graphic designers and changed the nature of their jobs. But it was in the 1980s that graphic design experienced a seismic shift in the profession, one that was, in many ways, very similar to what we're seeing today. In January 1984, the original Apple Macintosh computer debuted, which marked a huge turning point for graphic design. Until then, most computers operated with complex text commands that kept creative work at a distance. For those of you who are old enough to remember, you probably remember working on the Trash 80 computers we all used in the late 70s and the early 80s. They were terrible. The Macintosh broke through those barriers, offering a revolutionary visual interface and tools that felt intuitive to artists, not just to computer engineers. For the first time, graphic designers could lay out type and images on a computer screen in a way that felt truly creative and accessible. Shortly after the first Mac was released, desktop publishing software like Aldus PageMaker and the Apple LaserWriter printer were introduced. The effect on graphic design as a profession was dramatic. What had been an almost entirely analog craft suddenly became digital. Graphic designers needed different skill sets almost overnight. At the time, there were significant concerns about job losses from these technologies. Many experienced graphic design professionals, particularly those skilled in traditional typesetting, paste up, and illustration, feared that the speed and versatility of the new technology would eliminate their jobs and make their jobs obsolete. Designers found themselves having to learn new skills or risk being left behind. Sounds pretty familiar to today, right? And these new technologies opened up the world of who could work in graphic design. If you had a Mac and you had the right software, you could build a whole visual world from your home. This opened doors for freelancers, remote work, and the rapid growth of small advertising and design agencies. So, when you think about history of graphic design, the profession's already been through technological revolutions where old jobs are lost and new jobs are created. This kind of change, what's happening with AI now, is not new to the profession. So let's talk a little bit about today's technological revolution, which is AI. AI is changing graphic design essentially in three ways. First, AI is lowering the barriers to entry for people who want to do graphic design. similar to what happened with desktop publishing in the 1980s. Second is making the design process much more efficient for professionals and amateurs alike by automating tedious technical tasks. And third, it's augmenting creatives' abilities in areas they may not be as strong, like creating words or music to accompany a visual design. So let's talk about each of these changes, starting with how AI is making it easier for people to enter the profession of graphic design. Traditionally, one of the barriers to becoming a graphic design professional was that you had to have extensive knowledge of complex software design tools like Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Figma, CorelDRAW, or Sketch. To succeed in this industry, you had to have extensive technical software knowledge and the creative skill to use these tools effectively. These software programs are not all that intuitive or user-friendly. They have intricate interfaces which require a steep learning curve, which made it hard for someone without formal training to use them. AI, however, is changing that through something called text-to-image generation. Text-to-image generation AI allows users to create new visual content, things like images, photos, logos, just by describing them in natural language. So what does that mean? From a user perspective, you type into a prompt in a software program just what you want to see. For example, you might type, "I need a picture of a young girl with brown hair embracing a puppy on a hill." You then click enter, and in less than a minute, a colorful photo appears that matches the details you provided. The more details you tell the computer, the closer that the final product will be to what you had in mind. This is what's called prompt engineering. If you don't like the photo or something seems off, you just type further instructions into the prompt. For example, you might type, "Change the picture so that the puppy has black and white fur." A few seconds later, another image pops up with the changes you requested. Text-to-image generation makes it super easy to create multiple concepts to choose from, and getting the final product you want suddenly depends more on your skill in describing your vision than on your ability to master complex design tools. So, what is the AI technology behind text-to-image generation? It's called generative AI. Remember from our first episode together, we talked about how generative AI is the creative cousin in the AI technology family tree. It's a combination of several forms of AI, including machine learning, deep learning, and natural language processing. Generative AI can produce original, and I put original in quotes, but original content by synthesizing large amounts of unstructured, complex data using the deep neural networks we talked about in our first episode together. Text-to-image generative AI models are created or trained by reviewing millions of image caption pairs, basically image with a text description saying what the image is. During the training, the AI learns the relationship between the words and the image's features, styles, subjects, and scenes by mapping the text and the visual data into a shared mathematical map called latent space, where it connects language and visual concepts. The AI then uses neural networks to gradually get better at matching words with images. Once training is complete, the model uses what it learned to create fresh images based on your prompt, even if it hasn't seen an exact picture of what you're describing. Now, this training process is why critics of generative AI call it regurgitated AI, because generative AI is not creating something entirely outside of its training data. Its outputs are inherently derived from and limited by what it was trained on. So, generative AI is not truly thinking or understanding, but is instead performing sophisticated statistical calculations to predict the next logical element in a sequence, which is why some people say it's essentially advanced regurgitation. The most popular generative AI text-to-image tools right now are Midjourney, DALL, Stable Diffusion, Adobe Firefly, Ideogram, Canva Magic Design, but there are a lot more out there. This is a very hot market. Keep in mind, text-to-image generation is a game changer, but it's not totally new. there have been templates and stock images in the design world for some time. What's different with AI is the speed at which you work. Instead of spending hours searching for a stock image, you can get exactly what you want in seconds. It's also different because of the scale. Instead of being limited by the stock image or templates that you can easily find, you can create exactly what you visualize in your mind in minutes without using any complex design software. The second way AI is changing graphic design is that it's making the design process much faster and more efficient by automating tedious technical tasks. In the past, creating a visual design could require a lot of boring technical work. Things like removing something in the background or resizing an image, correcting a color, selecting a font, masking an image. These all take a lot of time. Text-to-image generative AI now automates these time-consuming tasks. For example, instead of painstakingly removing a distracting object from the background of a photo, designers can now use AI-powered tools to erase it instantly. Image resizing is similar. In the past, designers had to resize images for different media platforms. For example, if a designer was preparing an image for use on both Instagram, a website banner, and a printed flyer, the designer would have to manually crop and adjust the image to fit each unique size and aspect ratio. Now, generative AI can automatically adjust the image for different platforms or formats without distorting the quality or composition. And AI is doing the same thing for color correction, font selection, image masking, and other time-consuming technical tasks. The third and last way AI is changing graphic design is that it's augmenting creatives' abilities in areas where they may not be as strong, such as creating words or music to go along with a visual design. Many people who go into graphic design as a profession have excellent visual skills, but they may not feel as confident when it comes to writing copy or choosing music. Now, with generative AI, they can quickly generate draft text for headlines or ad copy, or create background music tailored to their project, making it easier to deliver a complete product for their client without having to hire additional specialists or spending time learning new skills. So, as you can see, AI is bringing a lot of changes to the field of graphic design. And after doing my research for this podcast and all these changes, I was super excited to try out all the new AI tools that are supposedly making graphic design accessible to people without technical training. And I had the perfect opportunity to do this because I needed all sorts of social media assets to launch this podcast. Now, when I came up with the idea for the podcast, I'm going to tell you I was pretty naive. I just thought I would talk about jobs into a microphone, which is something I'm really comfortable doing. I didn't think about how the podcast would need to be promoted to build an audience so that someone other than my dad would actually listen to it. So I quickly learned that I needed a logo. I needed cover art. I needed social media banners, a thumbnail. I'm still not sure what a thumbnail is. I might need a website. The list was endless. I was a bit overwhelmed by it all and thought, I'll just hire a marketing firm and they'll handle it all. But then I realized this is my chance to try out all the new AI graphic tools that promise that anyone can be a graphic designer. This felt like the perfect opportunity for me to dive in and try out the software myself. Now, I have to confess, I'm not a creative person. I like to think I am because I love color and pretty things, but I'm not. I don't have that gene or skill set. So, armed with a big cup of coffee, my trusty Macintosh computer, and plenty of optimism, I dove into the world of online logo makers. There are a lot of them out there, and many of them are just terrible. Over several hours and a lot of coffee refills, I worked my way through 8 different AI-driven logo design sites. I played with colors, fonts, icons, you name it. I experimented with it. I then spent a week tinkering with my logo drafts, hoping lightning would strike and they would suddenly look professional and polished. What I found was that AI was helpful for brainstorming ideas, but the logos it created were basic and pretty unexciting. Most designs were painfully generic or sometimes completely unrelated to my concept, and some were just humorously bad. And when I tried to refine the images the AI produced, the tools had limits. I couldn't always tweak the details I wanted, and the results never really had that professional polish or creative spark that makes a logo stand out. After a while, I threw in the towel, and I decided I need professional help. And in just a few phone calls, the graphic designer I hired took my scattered AI-generated drafts and transformed them into a logo that was sharp and professional. That process taught me something important. AI tools are fantastic for brainstorming and getting past creative blocks, but right now, they're just not a substitute for human creativity and experience, especially when you want a result that communicates your story and stands out in a crowded field. Needless to say, that experience reminded me how much I appreciate expertise, and I now have a great marketing team who handles my social media. Now, they use generative AI to create graphics, which is great, but they have training and experience and, frankly, a bit more patience to know how to get the most out of these tools. Bottom line, generative AI isn't going to transform a non-creative person like me into a graphic designer overnight. So let's talk about how is AI impacting jobs in graphic design. Let's start with how big is the field of graphic design in the U.S. right now? There are somewhere between 179,000 and 265,000 people working as graphic designers in the U.S., depending on the data source and how you include people who work freelance or part-time. Job growth has been very steady in the field over the last few years, with around 2% growth per year. Graphic designers work for a diverse range of companies. They can work in-house at a company as part of a marketing team. They can be at a design agency or a marketing firm, or they could work in a print shop. They can also be self-employed freelancers, which is a big area of growth. About a quarter of all graphic designers in the U.S. right now are freelancers. There are also many specialty roles within the industry, like motion graphics designer, web designers, and art directors. So it's a big, diverse industry. Average pay for graphic designers varies based on where they work in the U.S. and who their employer is. But to give you an idea, entry-level graphic designers often start around $40,000 to $50,000 per year, while experienced designers in major cities or in specialized roles can easily earn upwards of $90,000 to well over $100,000 a year. Overall, graphic design remains a competitive but solid field to go into. Remember, our world is becoming more digital every day, which means the demand for graphic design is only increasing. Sales via social media are growing much faster than sales in retail stores, and they show no sign of slowing down. In 2024, TikTok had $17.5 billion in U.S. e-commerce sales, with more than 500,000 merchants selling on the platform. Instagram's global ad revenue is projected to reach almost $70 billion in 2025, up over 16% over last year, and it's powered by 130 million worldwide users. These online marketplaces depend on compelling visual design to drive engagement and sales. As our shopping continues to shift online, brands must invest in custom graphics, animation, and strategic design work to stand out. This means that people who understand these online platforms and how to create compelling visual stories are still going to be needed. Now, that said, not all graphic designers have the same skill sets and job responsibilities, and some jobs are more vulnerable than others to be replaced by AI. The graphic design jobs most vulnerable to AI automation are those that focus on routine, repetitive, or template-driven tasks that require less creative decision-making and don't interact with customers. So jobs that focus on things like resizing or cropping images or photo touch-ups, creating social media graphics using templates, assembling template-based logos. All these jobs face a great risk from AI automation. Frequently, these are entry-level positions with job titles like layout designer, photo retoucher or photo editor, presentation designer, web designer, digital asset creator. So design work that relies primarily on technical execution rather than strategy and creative thinking is increasingly going to be handled by AI, reducing demand for these jobs. You'll see the reductions happen first at in-house company marketing departments and ad agencies where there's always a strong pressure to reduce costs. But some job reductions will also happen in the smaller design shops and among freelancers and print shops as clients start to do more on their own. Clients who once hired a graphic designer to resize a social media image or remove backgrounds are now able to do the work themselves just by pressing a button. And template-driven design is going to be more competitive than ever. So what jobs and tasks are less vulnerable to AI? AI is just not great at tasks that require nuanced judgment, cultural context, and human creative collaboration. These are areas where human insight is still really essential. For example, brand identity development involves interviewing clients, understanding their business goals, researching their markets, and then using all that information to invent a distinctive visual and emotional language for a brand. Now, some aspects of that work can be done by AI. For example, researching a client's market, something that AI is really good at. But AI can't put everything together and create a compelling final product. AI also can't do creative direction, such as guiding a visual campaign from initial brainstorming all the way to execution. And it can't bring all the disparate pieces of a campaign together. It can't interpret vague customer feedback, and it can't mediate between differing stakeholders. AI also really struggles with understanding what parts of a graphic design invoke an emotional feeling. Good designers are artists who understand how certain colors, composition, and imagery evoke different feelings and connections in us. AI just can't do that. Finally, complex user experience, or UX, and interface design for apps or websites remain very difficult for AI to replicate, especially if they involve understanding human needs and adapting solutions based on human feedback. These types of roles require careful, critical thinking, which AI just can't do. And remember, AI is going to create some new jobs at some point as well. ChatGPT and the other generative AI chatbots are going to become a place where people want to shop for goods. When that happens, it's going to open new online markets which need advertising. So keep your eyes out for new jobs that are starting to emerge for people who know how to work with these new AI design tools and how to get the most out of them. Some of the early job titles appearing are things like AI content creator, visual AI specialist, design prompt engineer, and AI creative director. So what do you do if you're in graphic design or if you're interested in a career in the field? First, learn how the new AI tools work. If you're in graphic design, you probably love technology and software, and you're probably already playing around with Firefly, Canva, Recraft, Figma plugins, and whatever else you can get your hands on. But I recommend that you learn how the AI software that powers these programs works, so you can understand how the software is going to evolve over the next few years, and you can stay ahead of the curve. Generative AI is changing very quickly. Second, build your creative thinking muscle. This is where you can stand out as a professional. AI can remix what exists, but it's not great at coming up with something wild or off the wall or really original, at least for now. True creativity is still a human characteristic. AI allows clients today to easily create a basic logo or business card on Canva, so you have to offer them something different, something compelling that makes them want to hire you instead of do it themselves. That's how you differentiate yourself from AI. Remember, generative AI is also regurgitated AI. Clients will still value creatives who understand brands and audiences and who know how to create a compelling visual story. Third, hone your ability to curate and edit and again and again and again. With generative AI's ability to create so many options, clients will value designers who can help them sift through the good from the bad and make things cohesive and persuasive. That's where you can make a big difference. Fourth, along those same lines, strengthen your people skills. Talking to clients, understanding their vision, and collaborating with other creatives. That's work that's really hard to automate. Even with AI tools working, someone has to interact with the customer and run and supervise the AI tools as they work. You want to be that person. To finish up, I just want to say, graphic design is still a very good career. Agencies are still hiring, companies still need in-house teams, and freelancers can reach more clients than ever. But the how of the work is changing very quickly. The challenge and the opportunity for graphic designers today is to harness these tools and combine the best of their human creativity with the digital speed of computers. Thank you for joining me today. I'd love to hear from you. Have you tried out any AI design tools? Are you excited or worried about the shift that's coming up? Talk to me. Drop me a comment and follow along for our next episode, where we'll dive into AI and one of your favorite topics, income taxes. See you soon.